media for the politically aware.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Of the UK British UFO hunters. He is he's been a UFO investigator for the past 20 years, and he's appeared on a number of television documentaries as well as television talk shows. He's worked closely with local and national radio stations and international newspapers, local and international, and he's always had good publicity, sharing information on local and international sightings, while he sticks to his strict code of witness confidentiality policy. He has striven to maintain a rigorous standard of scientific detachment to the investigation of UFOs and related phenomena, and can call in the services of several experts in a number of different fields, such as photographic experts in image enhancement, soil and plant analysis, and forensic analysis, etc. And they work alongside his group, and their expertise is way beyond our competence, so we rely on them. So my approach is scientific, one in principle. The British UFO hunters were set up by Russ Kellett and a group of UFO investigators and researchers, and they conduct unbiased scientific research into UFO sightings, abduction, and related phenomenon. So this is the British UFO hunters. And let's see what else. You can read more about Russ Kellett and the British UFO hunters on AquarianRadio.com. I have a page set up for him. Our producer is trying to reach him, and meanwhile, I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Aloha. Yeah, it's really interesting how the fractals of different consciousness, the archetypes within us are activated since we've aligned with the galactic core. And so now's the time really to think about what paragons or models of humanity do you have that sort of show you the higher self that you might be, and to really let yourself contact that fractal, let it become salient, stand out in your mind, and just imagine that you merge with that fractal of the highest consciousness that you can image, however you image that, and be that consciousness, and just be what you're aware of. Just notice when you are at your highest consciousness, who do you image and what are you aware of? And we'll start with Janet. Janet, who do you image, and what do you like when you're that fractal?
When I'm the highest consciousness?
One of the high consciousnesses that you're able to access deliberately, to bring in, to identify with, and feel.
I think we might have a guess, but when I'm on the highest level of consciousness, I've actually given my highest level of consciousness a name called Joy, and when I identify with Joy, I ask my highest self, because I'm a human being, and I say, where are you located? Where are you? And the answer that I got in my mind's eye, could be making it up, but where we're making it up from, is I'm 39 degrees on the right-hand side of God. And so that was a big cosmic joke of trying to put a location to somebody that's everywhere and everything at all times. And, with my research into my own phenomena as a UFO extraterrestrial abductee, contactee experiencer, and the hundreds, if not going on thousands of people that I've worked with, doing regressions and interviews on these radio shows at conferences. It's just mind-boggling, the amount of work that Dr. Lesson and I have done individually and collectively, and with other people like Misha Johnston. And what's happening, what we're discovering is that we all simultaneously exist on many levels, vibratory frequencies, dimensions, planets, and various avatars, and physical and non-physical emanations of our own consciousness. I guess if you take that back to source, you'll realize that we are all one, and like I say, Om Namah Shivaya, everything is one, we are everything. So, with one second here, I want to make sure, Thomas, Mad, do we have our guest?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, anything you want to say to wrap that up? Thanks for listening to us while we were getting our guests on board.
Well, we're really excited to have you here, Russ. I'm cool that you're a great scientist and all that, but what I really dig is your firsthand experiences that you allude to, that you have contact with extraterrestrials, because that's what we're all hungry for. What's really going on, and tell us the big picture.
Great. So welcome to our show, Russ. You probably missed the intro, but I gave our listeners a rundown, a little short, brief bio of yourself. But what would you like to tell us? And of course, Dr. Liston wants to know about your experiences that you've had as a contactee. But go ahead and fill in some of the blanks for us. Welcome.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. Sorry, I've been mega problems for 3/4 of an hour with my laptop, which is something that seems to happen every time I'm doing a show. Always seems to be a problem.
Wow.
Anyway, like I said, Janet, thank you very much for having me on the show. What would you like to know?
Well, first of all, we were talking a while back about your experiences as a contactee. Could you share a little bit with us? Because what we're finding in this field is that a lot of people that get involved in UFO investigation, either consciously or subconsciously, have had some kind of contact, some kind of awakening experience that made them realize that there is something to this.
Russ, I think you were set up and prepared for what you've been doing as your life work, and that's the hypothesis I'd like you to run.
Right. Well, I'd always had an interest in the subject of UFOs from being a young child. I remember my dad coming home from work. He was a carpet weaver, and on a break early in the morning, because he worked nights, his brothers and friends were on a break and they witnessed a UFO, but not just a UFO, something quite amazing. They were saying it was like a torpedo, a silver torpedo, but my dad had his back to it and he missed it, but he was telling us all about it. So that always, was in my memory as a child. Then seeing the science fiction films and magazines that was out, at the time, I had an interest. What happened then, as a young lad that lived down the street with all his friends, who was on what you would call a break, a fall break, summer break, and we was off school, and we was playing in the streets at hide and seek. And that's when we had his first real UFO sighting, or I should say I did. Amazing sighting, and I was caught first playing this game because I was stood looking at this amazing UFO, this object, which was like it was white and red, and it like segments of an orange, like red, white, all the way around. And it was just so amazing that everybody eventually stopped playing hide and seek, and we were watching this, and this massive big object went across, the sky, and as kids we was running after it. Me being a little fat kid, I was at the back, catching up with everybody, and it's just amazing. And we had to come back, and we were talking about what we'd seen, and there was this area where we were sat, and it impressed so much upon us. We had to give this area where we'd first seen it a name, and there was a nail sticking out of the tarmac. So I said, why don't we call it Nail Point? So even to sort of like this day, people that was there that have contacted me on Facebook have said, do you remember Nail Point? Do you remember that UFO sighting that we had? So that wasn't only my experience, but it was something that was always in my mind, in my memory, or even now, it's something that we remember. So that happened. We were about 14 and 15 years old. So I had a bit of an interest. I went to a meeting, I think, when I was about 15 with a friend.
What year, just to give us a reference, what year was that? When that happened?
When you were 15.
When you were 14 or 15, what year was that?
It should have been about 1970, 77, something round about that time.
Okay.
So then 78, 79 came along. I went to my first conference, and it was a talk by a group, and it wasn't for me because it didn't fit in. Everybody was wearing suits and ties and what have you, and with us only being 15, we felt like we were a bit, shoved out, sort of thing. Anyway, that was it then for a few years, because coming of age and everything, getting a scooter, and having then progressed onto a motorbike, and having time just for that one thing, basically a life, which was me, my motorbike, and sort of like that was it, and strange things started to happen then. Like I was having missing time. I'd go out on my motorbike, and I'd basically come back, and I'd think that's a bit strange, because I had to work, and I had a pretty big bike, and I used to sort of like have custom parts on it and everything. So I was working basically to keep my motorbike on the road. So really, if I'm honest about it. So, I had to get up on the morning to go to work. So I was always conscious of getting in at a reasonable time. I didn't actually drink. I think I was the only one in sort of like my sort of like group of friends that didn't actually drink, because I used to do a bit of training as well, So all this was going on, but I had a friend who was a pillion rider on back of my chopper, you see. And what had happened one day, it was something really silly, and was talking about, we'd go out on a night after we'd come in from work, have us tea, we'd meet up. Some days we'd go to our club meeting, and then some days we might just go for a ride and meet up with members and friends, etc., or just go for a ride out, And this particular night, I remember it, and was talking the next day about where we'd been on that night, the night before. And I said, well, how do you mean? He said, oh, when we went through, this area. And I said, well, I never went that way. And, oh, don't be silly, sort of like, this is the way you went. And that's well, that isn't, I don't know where you've been or whose bike you've been on, but I didn't go anywhere near. And it was a different part of where we were 30 miles out, sort of like, he's talking about, it was something called the Three Nuns. We had a rude name for it. I won't tell you what it was, but it was a rude name. And you know, I said we hadn't been anywhere near the Three Nuns, you know, and in fact, I was closer to where I live now, you know, sort of halfway over here on the East Coast, near York and Blubberhauser, so miles away.
Uh-huh.
And you know, it was one of these things where my friend was really annoyed with me because he thought I was taking a rise out of him. And I said, well, no. So we didn't talk for a few days. It was a little bit strange. But, you know, this is one of the things that, you know, looking back, there were telltale signs that there were things going on. You know, another time when the same friend was with us, and I remember not feeling quite right. I dropped him off and said, see you later, you know, see you tomorrow sort of thing. And yeah, and he just and walked in, you know, to his through his gate and, you know, to his house. And I went home, and there was something not quite right again. And I could not remember, to this day, I could not remember how I got home. I couldn't remember the journey after a certain area, which is, you know, again, miles away. And I could not remember apart from pulling up outside of his house, leaving him, and then going into my own, you know, sort of like yard, parking up and going up. And I could not, for the world, for the life in me, remember, you know, where I'd been. You know, and
Wow.
so these are the strange things. Anyway, the next thing that happened, I was at the traffic light just down the road from me, and all of a sudden there's pipping, you know, people, you know, pipping a horn on the cars. And I looked around, and a friend of mine, he was off of the road at the time, but he was a biker friend, and he's shouting, Russ, are you all right, mate? And I says, yeah, why? What's up? And he said, well, he said, cars are pipping at you to go. You sat there at the traffic lights, and the lights are green, and you just sat there. He says, you know, like people are shouting at you, and I'm looking around. And what had happened, something really, really strange. I'd remembered something, and I was there, I was sat, and I remember being in this circular room, and there's a checkered board floor, and I am sort of like floating with my hands across, like a cross outwards. And there's these orbs, one on each side of me, under my palms and my hand, and I'm basically floating and being kept up. And looking all around me in this circular room are these human figures. They seem to be dressed in, they've got like cloaks on, and they've got helmets on. And I can only describe them as what you would call knights of old.
Oh.
You know, like Knights Templars.
Like okay, so I see
So
your drawing that you sent me, and it kind of looks like World War II or one, but you're saying because it's just a hand drawing, but you're saying it goes even further back to the Knights Templar.
Well, look at your symbol that you put on your website is the Maltese cross, so all that's right. A hint.
And then you have a checkered floor, which is another symbol.
Yeah, we're getting hints.
Kind of the yeah. So okay, go ahead, continue. That's fascinating.
The thing is, this is years ago. I mean, I was brought into the Brotherhood about 8 years ago. I became a Templar about 8 years ago. And it is really bizarre how all this happened. And it was through people you could call a cult, or you could call a cane knowledge, you see. Anyway, so all this is going on. I'm sort of like, having this strange thing happen, remembering being in this room and what have you. And, it's getting so bizarre. And at this time, I'm getting a little bit concerned because I'm thinking I'm arguing with people because I don't know how I'm getting home. I'm going home one way. Tony says that I'm going home another way. And we sort of like falling out over this. And I'm sat here at traffic lights and I'm sort of like, I'm just in a daze. Something not quite right, So at this point, I'm starting to get a bit worried. But anyway, so life goes on and you're doing your everyday things. And then all of a sudden, one evening, my friend, I asked him if he wanted to come over to meet up with somebody at this pub because I wanted to meet him to see about some work that needed doing on my motorbike, my motorcycle. And he was busy, we were going somewhere. So I said, all right, no problem. So I went myself. Went over to this place about 15 miles away to see this guy with this motorbike and to talk about this job that needed doing. And I waited there for an hour or so, and he didn't turn up. It was only by chance that someone said he might be there. So if he is, he is. But like I say, he didn't turn up, so I thought I'll have to come back another night. We looked at the time, and I had to be, like I say, I had to be back at work, the next day. So I didn't want to be out too late and what have you. So I set off back home, and I'm going back home. And what happens next? I decided to cut off and to take a shortcut, and I turned the roundabout, went across to the level crossing. So I'm there and I see these red lights. So I'm thinking, oh, barriers coming down. So I slowed down and stopped at the barrier waiting for the train to go past. Anyway, whilst I'm sat there waiting, all of a sudden there's this like light, a real bright light. And I'm thinking, wow, sort of like, it's blinding. It's like a blinding light. And I'm sort of like, and I'm looking around because I'm not too happy because I'm thinking this must be a wagon or, a truck behind me with its headlights. And I could feel the heat. So I'm looking round and there's not, and I'm looking at both sides and I'm thinking to myself, well, there's nothing behind us. So I realised I had this, I had a Fat Bob petrol tank on my chopper with speedo and my rev counter, all chrome, and the light was actually, I could see it was reflecting, and so I'm thinking it's coming from above. So I'm looking up, and I'm sort of like blinded by the light, realising that it's coming from above, and the next thing, I just feel like I'm floating, and then there's a bang, and sort of like I'm looking around. The light's gone out, and I'm sort of like looking around me, and I'm thinking, flipping heck, what's going on here? So I'm looking around. There's nobody around whatsoever, and the light's gone. So I'm thinking I better get off here now and sort of like move on and drive off because I'm sat in the middle of the road. There's no train or anything. Something might, smash into the back of me bike and what have you. So anyway, carries on my journey on. And,
so were you feeling fear? Was this scary to you?
To be honest, not really. There were a bump, and I was a bit scared then with this bump. But before that, I just felt like I was floating. It was an amazing feeling of sort of like floating. And then
just
sort of
interesting.
Excuse me?
It was euphoric when you were floating, or interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was just quite an amazing, sort of like weightless and what, I hadn't had that feeling for a long time. But anyway, I was sort of like feeling quite weightless and what have you, and then it was a bang, a bump, and sort of like, oh, right, I better move off, to say, because I'm sat in the middle of a road, more or less, So as I'm driving, I'm riding my bike, and I'm coming to this place. I did go a little bit fast sometimes. I won't say too much, though. I used to go a little bit fast. And I'm going down this road, and there's this ball of light at the side of me. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, that's keeping up with me, whatever it is. And I'm thinking, is it? And I'm looking, I'm thinking, is it an helicopter or something? Sort of like, because it's keeping sort of like pace with me, and then all of a sudden it's getting closer towards me, and it's going over barns, it's going over trees, and it's coming closer to me. So I basically pulled my throttle back and started going faster, and that's going faster now. In fact, it's sort of like in front of me. So I'm thinking, flipping heck, this is it's amazing, is this? So I'm sort of like trying to race it. If I'm honest about it, I'm trying to race it. And all of a sudden, I'm. If I tell the truth, I would really try it. And next thing I know, it comes close, and it's straight in front of me, right in front of me, and straight up into the sky. Sort of like towards Halifax, and I'm thinking, whoa. That shouldn't have done that, really, because it came over the road, sort of like. And anyway, so there's this place where we used to go on trails bikes on this road called the Flappy. So I looked around, there's nothing around, and sort of like I pulled in, and there's a car park. So I pulled over, and I'm watching this object is still going over towards Halifax. And I can see it going in the distance, and sort of like it's a bright, like whitey silver. I can't describe the colour, sort of thing. Ball of light. So I pulled up, and I used to smoke cigs then, and that's all there was, cigs. So I pulled up, and I had a fag, sort of like, and I'm watching this, and I'm just absolutely just amazed by this, this whole episode. So anyway, after about 10 minutes, I thought, right, I better move myself now and get home and what have you. So sets off, long story short, gets home, pulls the gate open and what have you, comes in, because I'm thinking it looks a little bit in darkness, and it's not usually like that, sort of like, there's usually lights on when I come in. And I'm thinking, sort of like, it must have been later than I thought when I set off from this pub, you see. So I wheeled my bike in, and goes in. My dog came out, let it have a run about and what have you, and went straight upstairs to bed, sort of thing. I think I'd started to make a coffee, and I got the feeling that sort of like it was later than what I thought, so I didn't want to wake anybody up. So went to bed. Anyway, the next thing I know, I'm being sort of like woken up by an irate mum. Come on, get up, you're going to be late for work. Don't you realise what time it is when you get in and what have you? Your boss will be... Anyway, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, yeah, I get that. Yeah, you're totally right and what have you, but I didn't realise it was so late when I got in. And anyway, I goes to work. I gets in work, takes my helmet off and what have you. And no sooner had I done that, I've worked with 150 women in a big male sorting factory, sort of like... And one of the lasses there, one of the women, I should say there, she came up and she says, "Here, Russ, have you seen your face?" And I goes, "Yeah, have you seen yours?" And she said, "No, I'm being serious." She said, "Have you started going on, sunbeds? Because it were all the raging 80s and what have you, like getting a suntan and what have you." And I says, "No." She said, "You have." She said, "And you've overdone it as well a little bit." what are you talking about? She says, go have a look at your face in the mirror. And I said, be here. She said, no, go on. And all women were laughing and what have you. So I had a little office and I had this mirror. Anyway, I looked and my face was absolutely red. I can only describe it.
Wow.
And
Burned.
it looked like I'd got, sort of like third-degree burns and what have you on my face, Well, when I looked, I'd got it on my hands, my neck, all my face, and what have you. So what happened basically? It's anybody's guess. Gets home and walks through the door. Everybody's getting ready for tea, and they're just sort of like looking at me, thinking, "Oh, why?" They were thinking the same thing. Where did you go? You've been out on a sunbed last night, because me. And you could see it was like where me crash helmet had an half-face helmet. It was like. So obviously that had happened when I had my crash helmet on. So, the light coming down when I was at the level crossing, and the other thing coming across in front of me, sort of like, was that the cause? Because I told my friends, sort of like in bike club, and sort of like my friends want me friends after that. If you know what I mean, you were like, I think we should keep away from Russ, and one or two of them, Russ, you could be radioactive, if it were a UFO, you could be radioactive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sort of like, it was one of these things where it got where it wasn't funny after a while, because what happened was that I started becoming poorly, ill, sick after that.
Oh.
My hair was sort of like, I didn't have long hair or anything, or, I would always kept and what have you, but I noticed my hair was coming out. I had sort of like a chest infection. I was just really fatigued all the time. Just really, really not well at all. And I never really recovered. From it because.
Were you radioactive indeed?
Did you get an examination?
I did, but not for radio. I could just imagine my doctor. So I did tell him. I did actually tell him, and he did just stop me. He said, "Before you tell me about anything like UFOs," he said, "don't tell me."
Oh.
He said, "Before you tell me, don't tell me." You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
It was.
Yeah.
I think it was a warning, like you could be sectioned here. You know what I mean? I think it was a bit of a warning.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Just don't tell me what I think you're going to tell me. So I didn't tell him, sort of like.
Right.
I said, well, I don't feel well. I've got this, and anyway, and it went on where I was completely bald. And not only was I completely bald, I started shaving me head and trying to look like something that I'd met. I had this image in my head of this thing that I'd met, which was bald, and sort of like I remember, looking in the mirror one day when I was shaving my head and what have you, and seeing this person, this alien, sort of like, and remembering, thinking, I look like you now. You know what I mean? I look like you now. Really bizarre things going on. Problems with my throat. I was choking. I stopped going to the dentist and what have you, because I had a fear of them coming near my throat and what have you. I had problems with my ears. I still do even today. And what happened?
What year was this? This incident, what year was this?
60.
This would have been 1980. about 1988.
Oh,
88. Okay, and you still have symptoms from this incident. Wow.
Yeah, what happened was I was diagnosed with something called ME, which is, I don't know if you know, myalgia encephalitis. Have you heard of it?
what? No, I never heard of it. What is it?
Really? Right. Well,
You're saying myalgia?
encephalitis.
Okay. It's not encephalitis. No, it's.
And yeah.
Tell us what it is.
Say again, sorry?
Please tell us in the radio audience who knows even less than me, maybe, what that is.
It's myalgia encephalitis. It's basically means part of your brain that's swollen.
Okay, like encephalitis. Okay. Okay.
Something else they call is another word, another name for it is chronic fatigue syndrome.
Okay. Yeah, that's what they use over here.
I got you.
Anyway, the thing is, and remember I've told you this, right, yeah, because throughout my investigations over the years, I've been coming across people now that have been abducted, that have had contact, that have ME or chronic syndrome. So just remember I told you this first, because I've got into so many arguments with debunkers, and I've said I've basically looked at people, I've looked at the actual testimonies, and what they've told me is coming up just the same. You know, they've got something very, very similar.
That's right. It was repeatable. So the experience is validated as reliable, and many witnesses to their own bodies report the same thing.
So do you think you were exposed to radiation and that induced the chronic or the chronic fatigue, or the myalgia?
I hadn't even started yet.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Take it away.
Right. Because honestly, this is, you're not going to believe this. So that is, you know, sort of like 20 years down the line through this happening to me researching, because I started researching because I wanted answers, you know, because my life started being affected. I had to sell my bikes and what have you. My friends, I was basically outcast. I didn't have friends anymore, you know, sort of like, you're like, oh, keep away from Russ. You know what I mean? He sees aliens, you know what I mean? Sort of like he's being attacked by him, you know, so. And it's all right, but it's not that funny after a while, you know. So all this is going on. I'm seeing doctors that have been diagnosed now with ME or chronic fatigue syndrome, and I'm basically shattered. My liver starts playing up then, and my kidneys, you know. So I'm not in great shape and what have you. So. You know, this is all what's going around at a time when I've got me motorbike, and before I sold it and what have you, something very strange happened. My girlfriend and myself, her friend, and two other friends of mine, we'd been in a club. We'd come out because my girlfriend wanted to see her cousin, which was just sort of like just down the road. So we goes down onto this estate where she lived and what have you. And coming home, we decided to go through the cemetery. And when we coming through the cemetery, right, I noticed something very, very odd, and that's as a wall that must be 15 foot high, partly around the cemetery, and I noticed these figures, like shadows of like people, and there was quite a few, and I'm thinking, right, must be shadows because there's nobody that tall. And I'm looking, and I just said to my girlfriend, I said, look, you know, like, let's run through here. I says, you know, last one out of here basically has to pay for a round of drink. You know, last one out of here has to pay, you know, for a round of drink. So, and we started running, and I don't know what happened. I can't explain it. And what she said, and she said this to an author at, I helped write a book about the Berwyn Mountains, and he took a statement from her about this, and she said that when she looked round, there was something stood 10 foot tall behind me. This person, what was like 10 foot tall behind me.
Whoa.
And she screamed and she run, and they didn't see me for 45 minutes. For 45 minutes, I didn't come out of that cemetery. Now, when I did come out of the cemetery, I remember walking through this sort of like this way just between these two houses across towards the cricket club, where I said we'd probably meet him up there. And as I run across the road into the cricket club grounds, because I could see my girlfriend were crying. And I said, what's going on? So they all looked around and sort of like, they says, where have you been? And I said, how do you mean, where have I been? I've just come through cemetery behind you. And they said, no, you haven't. They says, we went back down about 15 minutes ago and you weren't down there. And I says, well, I was just behind you. And to this day, you know, the story, two of I don't think, there's only my girlfriend, my ex, I should say, let's call her ex, flipping ex. There's only her that'll really recognise that something happened, because the others aren't interested, they don't want to know. But she says that, yes, she saw this thing, you know, stood towering above me. And she says it were like, you know, she put the word in my mind in a way when she called it a monster. She saw a monster.
Uh-huh.
And so that was something that happened, which, you know, sort of like, wow, you know, sort of like, I don't know, because like I say.
So let me see, the monster sort of put a pejorative or fearful label to something that you didn't really directly experience. It was her label. Is that what you're saying?
She labeled it. She said there were monsters stood behind you, and I
gotcha.
I couldn't remember. I just have a drink of water.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me.
Sure.
So, you know, after that, you know, we sort of like, I took her home. My friends went home and what have you. So that was around about the time, like I say, when all this strangeness were happening. I was falling out with my friend because of, you know, sort of like a disagreement, how I got home, how we both got home from a journey. I'm remembering things being in this circular room with these like knights and what have you. There's things, you know, like tall creatures in you know, in the cemetery, and there's this thing, and there's 45 minutes gone where I'm not around, you know. Anyway, so things start to get worse after this. You can imagine. So I'm listening to music at one particular evening. I'm on my bed, you know, sat listening to music, and my bedroom wall, the end of the gable end, the wall just turned black. It just, from a white wall like in here, just turned black. And I'm laid down, sort of like listening to music, looking and going, thinking, what's happening? Why is my wall just turned black? And then all of a sudden, these things walk through the wall.
Oh.
These people walked through my wall.
What did they look like?
Basically, they were like frogmen.
Frogmen. Okay.
You know, frogmen, skin diver.
Okay.
You know,
so
like,
they were human, but they were wearing outfits.
Well, right, how can I put it? They were more like, you know, silhouettes of humans. Call them silhouettes. There was, okay. How can I put it? The way they looked, they were sort of like solid, but they were sort of like black, but it was shimmering. You know, like looking into, you know, like a black glass. You know,
right? Yeah.
I couldn't really describe.
I've actually seen. They look like they were silhouettes. The ones I saw, like shadow people. You know, like they were dark and silhouette-ish. Yeah. And
people.
But they were different.
I've called. But they
look like they had like a skin type uniform on, like Catwoman. You know, in the '60s, and Batman. You know, Catwoman.
Yeah.
Like head to toe.
Yeah.
Very.
That's the ones. That's the
okay.
ones.
Seen them.
So, but they're quite tall, like as tall as my bedroom ceiling, and they stand.
Right. Uh-huh.
And I think I sent you some drawings what I did of them.
No, you didn't send those, but if you could send them later, I'd appreciate that.
Of
I'll
course.
put them on your page.
Anyway, so these things are sort of like all around me. And I'm thinking, oh dear. So I'm talking to them. We're having this conversation with one in particular. And at this time, unbeknown to me, my sister is going to the bathroom because she's been downstairs watching television. So she's coming up to the bathroom. The bathroom's on the landing where I'm in the bedroom. And she can hear me talking to these things, or one of the things anyway. And the door was ajar, was sort of slightly open. And my sister shouts, "Who are you talking to? Who's in there with you?" And these things, she'd sort of like disturbed them, and they decided to go. Excuse me. And my sister opened the door. And I said, "Well, I'm just talking to them." I said, "They've gone now." And she said, "You talking to who, you fool?" She says, "There's nobody here." I said, "I know, because they've gone." She said, "Well, where did they go?" I said, "They've just gone back through the wall." And she, oh my God, no. So, anyway, what happened then? So my sister goes down and she's telling me dad and my mum. She says, "I don't know just what's happened." She said, "But our Russ is upstairs and he's talking to people that are not there." Dad, really? All right, yeah, okay then. So like my dad's not too bothered. All right, yeah. So my mum's there crying, my sister's crying, and I'm trying to explain to them. And well, how did that? And they were talking, but there were no facial expressions or anything like that. They were just talking to me. And he was showing me something. He was explaining something to me and showing me something that made so much sense at the time. And he was showing me and telling me this is this and this is how this works. And it was just like, if somebody put an equation on a blackboard and go through it with you step by step, you could understand it. And then once they've wiped it off, sort of like, now go through it, you'd be lost. It was like that. Right. It was really bizarre. But whilst it was there and whilst it was telling me and showing me, it was showing me things. And there was like watching television in a way. There was sound and images, and then, like I say, then my sister, of course, she always does that. She always interrupts. Bang, sisters do, I suppose.
Sis.
Yeah. So, right. So that's what happened. The next day, I am absolutely sick. I am being sick, vomiting. Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I'm soaked in sweat, and I'm not well whatsoever. And if I remember rightly, I think it was the day when Stormy Norman took Kuwait, I think. So this had been 1990. I've got it written down because what happened was I had to be rushed into hospital.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And, sort of like I had to be rushed into hospital, and I'd lost in a matter of a week. I'd lost stone, quite a few stones in weight. I put it back on now, but back then, this is something that happened, and I'm sure that one of the doctors said, I'm sure he said that if I didn't know any different, I would have said that he had radiation sickness.
Uh-huh. Oh, yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Again, and there were two doctors. But to be quite honest, I was really out of it. I just, people were worried. My family were worried. They were coming to hospital to see me and what have you. And I remember I actually, I got out of hospital. Somebody had actually died in the next bed. And whilst they were looking to the person and what have you, I just went and got my clothes and walked out. And rung my dad up and said, "Can you pick me up?" And he said, "Well, where are you?" I said, "Well, I'm outside at hospital." And he said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, they've let me out. They said I can come home." They hadn't. But I just wanted to be, and I knew that somebody had died next to me. I could sense it, So I just wanted to be home. So I got home, and before I got home, my mum had a phone call saying that, we're looking for your son. We don't know where he is. And my mum said, well, he's rung the house to say that he's on his way home. And they said, oh, okay then. Sort of like, so long as we know where he is. So like I say, all this, this isn't your love and light type of thing. This is things that are going on. This is,
Do you think this was extraterrestrial or my labs? Do you think this was?
Are we all right? Because then you'll understand exactly who they are and what they are.
Yeah.
Continue.
It's a narrative that builds.
It's a narrative that builds. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
It's not quite as simple as what people think, and I could be wrong because I'm still searching for answers here. So all this is going on. So it's like hospital appointments. This is going on. I'm having things walk through my wall now. I'm going missing. Anyway, the next thing, I'm with a friend of mine again on my motorbike, and I go missing again, sort of thing, And I'm thinking, something, I'm going to learn to drive a car because I might be a little bit safer in a car, I'm thinking, so there might not be because by this time, people are telling me, Russ, you've been abducted. This is, and he said, put it together. You're having missing time. You're seeing these things. There's things coming through walls and what have you. They're communicating with you. You're seeing silver balls of light, keeping up to you, racing you, and then flying in front of you, taking off and what have you. And I'd already noticed that there was sort of like quite a lot of UFOs around me. So much that I decided to get a camera and to start filming these. And I've put them up on YouTube. Just this year, I'd started to put things up, of all sorts of things like flying men falling out of the sky, me being hit with 5 balls of lights and what have you, flying triangles coming out at sea, and all sorts of strange things. which most of the documentary makers, when they come to see me, think it's great, and then all of a sudden I'm edited out of their documentaries.
Oh, wow.
Which has happened quite a number of times over the years now. So, what happens next? Wow, well, this is it. And it's a case of I'm taken, right, yeah. I can't, like I say, I remember being taken. I could be just driving. It's happened where I've been riding on my motorbike, and all of a sudden I'm gone, and then the next minute I'm going down one part of the road. The next minute, right, yeah, I'm sort of like almost coming off of my bike, like I'm unstable, and I'm looking around, and I'm going the opposite direction. Right, yeah. I'm going the opposite direction to when I started. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, what's...
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Hey folks, Captain Nighthawk here. Do you have a favorite host? Well, imagine if you will having all the broadcast shows from 2013 to listen to anytime you want. Awesome deal, huh? Anyway, so stop by freedomslips.com and order the entire 2013 library of your favorite host for just $30. Not only do you help with the station funding to keep us on the air, you also help the host because they get half of the net on every order. Also, we have Revolution Radio's all-time favorite shows all on one disc. The details are really broad, so you'll have to visit the website and go look at the details yourself. It's, again, www.freedomslips.com/season2013.htm. And get your favorites. First come, first serve, 7 to 21 days for delivery. Thank you. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps, including me. Later.
We've got to stop them! They're going to kill us all!
Hi, this is Bo.
And this is Rocco.
And the Bo and Rocco Show is here to offer insight into legal and lawful remedies. Our goal is to remain free and help others remain free in an ever-increasing police-like state. With the help of our guests, we try to answer questions such as what went wrong and what can we do about it.
So tune into Revolution Radio at www.freedomslips.com Wednesday nights, 10 to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to listen to the Bo and Rocco Show.
You don't need to expect us.
We're already here.
Revolution Radio.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically autonomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
Media for the politically aware.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lesson and Dr. Sasha Lesson.
Together we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lesson.
Of the UK British UFO hunters. He is he's been a UFO investigator for the past 20 years, and he's appeared on a number of television documentaries as well as television talk shows. He's worked closely with local and national radio stations and international newspapers, local and international, and he's always had good publicity, sharing information on a local and international sightings, while he sticks to his strict code of witness confidentiality policy. He has striven to maintain a rigorous standard of scientific detachment to the investigation of UFOs and related phenomena, and can call in the services of several experts in a number of different fields, such as photographic experts in image enhancement, soil and plant analysis, and forensic analysis, etc. And they work alongside his group, and their expertise is way beyond our competence, so we rely on them. So my approach is scientific, one in principle. The British UFO hunters were set up by Russ Kellett and a group of UFO investigators and researchers, and they conduct unbiased scientific research into UFO sightings, abduction, and related phenomenon. So this is a British UFO.
Everything was just ever so slightly askew.
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And aloha and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com with Janet Kira Lesson and Dr. Sasha Lesson, and Thomas Becker is our producer, and Russ Kellett, British UFO hunter, is our guest. But before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to that donation button and make your donation today. We appreciate whatever you donate, $1, $5, $15, $20, whatever you donate is greatly appreciated. And Mad Painter, what's going on? What do we need? Where are we?
We're right at the halfway point of what we need to reach our goals, and it's right at the halfway point of the month, so we're doing fairly good.
Yeah, but still donate. Still donate. Better to get ahead than fall behind. Alrighty, so Sasha, want to say something?
Well, just you got to understand that a radio station like this, like Revolution Radio, isn't bought by commercial interests, isn't run by the government. This is really worth contributing to. I just wanted to add that.
Yes, thank you, Revolution Radio. Okay, Russ, you were in the middle of the cliffhanger.
Oh, right, yeah. So, what happens next? Like I said, I'm seriously thinking about learning to actually drive a car, because I'm feeling a little bit unsafe, uneasy when I go out on my motorbike. So I started taking driving lessons and that type of thing. They can get you no matter whether you're in a car or a motorbike or wherever you are, and that is
yes. Even if you move halfway across the planet, they should still get you. I went from Pennsylvania to Hawaii.
Doesn't
and
matter.
There's no escape.
Yeah, there's no escaping. If these things want you, let's get the myth sort of like blown out of the window, which is you don't have to be asleep for these things to come and take you. You could be at work, you could be. Right. These things can take you at any time they want. There's nothing you can do, unfortunately. Now, what I started doing meditation. I was into something, well, I'll go into it, but I was into, people call it, you could call it a sport, etc. And I started to meditate. And I think maybe what might have happened was because I was meditating and going into a different state. You got is it alpha, beta, delta, theta, all different states. Right. I think somewhere along the line, because of this, maybe one of the reasons why these things maybe found me in the first place. Having said that, I've been told by quite a number of people it's to do with your DNA, it's to do with who you are, etc. A question.
Russ, one big question that comes up in this profession, especially with Ray Hernandez doing studies, is that did you at any time, even as you explored this, give consent to being taken, either in this or earlier lifetimes?
Right. Okay. So you were saying that that you told your DNA, who you are as a soul, and you said something like you didn't quite.
I can't remember ever giving consent. This is, this is sounding something a little. Sorry.
Have you ever been regressed, hypnotized?
I have been regressed, yeah, quite a number of years ago, and sort of like felt very, very uneasy with it, if you know what I mean. I ain't saying that I don't believe it. I just keep away from it, in a way, what you're saying, it sounds a little bit like the Jason Bourne sort of like scenario. You wanted this when you first came to us. This is what you've got. Now, this is your problem. This is, you know what I mean? And right. I don't think, I might have been in a bike club and what have you. And, that sort of like, people might say, I always never dress smart, always look rough. But I'm not really, sort of like, it's like, so I'm not that type of a person. I'd rather have a laugh and a joke with people than, sort of like, draw swords, if you know what I mean, or whatever. I'm not that kind of person. So, what I'm going to tell you next is this is why he's sort of like, he totally out of character with me. And that is, I'm remembering, I've got a car now, and I'm driving the car, and I go to an area where there's been a lot of UFO sightings, and I have this very, very uneasy feeling, and again, I'm feeling that it's later on than what I thought it was, So I'm looking, I think, I might as well get home and what have you, sort of like nothing's happening. But I've got this feeling, and something happens, and it's like I remembered I've got this suit on. I'm putting this suit on, which is like, for all the world, it's like, curtains, right flimsy curtain material, lace curtain sort of thing. It's like that, and this uniform's going on, and it like goes up, and then there's a knob, like a dial, and you turn this dial, and this suit basically pulls you in, and it's sort of like it alters shape, and it's becoming more heavier and thicker material and darker. And there's like another knob sort of like below it, and it's just sort of like just unbelievable. It's like it's a different garment now. And I used to make garments, so I know that the material's different, and it's just by a dial, like this knob or dial, and this goes on, and there's this helmet, and there's a weapon, and the next thing, like this is me, sort of like in a uniform with an helmet, and then sort of like a weapon, and I'm with a unit, and we're basically walking along this, like, how can I explain what it's like? It's like a long walkway, and we're going along this long walkway and what have you, and I notice there's somebody behind me, and it starts talking, and one of these things comes up, and it's like, it's one of the creatures, the 10-foot creatures, but he's not as big, he's about 6 foot. And we're all wearing uniforms, and like I say, and helmets and what have you, and this thing isn't. And when this thing came and sort of like looked at me, and I realised what my girlfriend had said, a monster, because I'm looking at this monster which is telling me to shut up and not talk, and I'm sort of like, and this, I can feel it even now, this like fear, this like dread, this thing, sort of like, just unbelievable. So, but like I says, and this person, I sort of like know him, because I can't say who he is, but he's pretty famous, and I'm saying, don't I know you from somewhere, and right, stop talking, you're not here to talk, and get on, sort of like back in line, and sort of like, okay, yes, I'm back in line. And so that is something that, I remember, like I said, that there's everybody and the same weapons, the same uniform.
You're in line with somebody that's famous. Are they like a politician or a movie star?
Not a politician. Having said that, some politicians are movie stars, I suppose, or they should be. What's the difference these days?
But like a celebrity television,
celebrity, yeah, celebrity, and I'm thinking to myself, I know you from somewhere, and so I know it anyway. So that was one of the funniest, strangest things that happened, apart from meeting this thing for the sort of like the first time I remember, Then,
Russ, can I ask you the opposite question? Before I asked you about did you consent, did you ever say, no, I don't want to do it, I refuse?
I can't remember ever saying no, I don't want to do it. But no, I can't really remember saying that.
Thank you. That's just part of my little survey. I studied with this guy Baldwin who said you can make this desist if you say I refuse to let you occupy my body. Gives this little thing that you do, and then you ask for spiritual help and so forth. And so I'm trying to find out if anyone ever did that. No, I was too frightened. Yeah. How can I put it? How can I put it? Your mind's not thinking that how can I put it? To say that, you're not going to take me. Because it happens so fast and you're there. And how can I put it? It was too fast to even think.
You're like teleported. Sometimes you just find yourself there. You're already there.
Because it's like, remember, right? Yeah, it's like when these things happen, it's like as I'm trying to sort of like get my head around this, because I went missing for 45 minutes and I go missing for 45 minutes, an hour, and maybe 2 hours a time. But in that 45 minutes or that hour or 2 hours, right? Yeah. And now this is the thing, what you've got to get your head around, which I cannot understand it, but we're not talking about these things coming from other planets. This is more because of the way I've traveled, and now because I know how I travel, I look at it, this is like time travel as well.
Right.
Yeah. There's two aspects here. They can take you from A to B, right? Yeah. And that's fine, but they can take you from A to B, and they can take you then to any time. They can take you any time on this planet. They can take you any time in the universe. It's like, for instance, I was born the same year a certain president was assassinated, and this is a real mind screw, right? Yeah, and they could take me in, say, 1990, right? Yeah, back to 1960. So I'd be 1960, 70, 80, 90. So call it around about being 30, 80, 90. So that'd be round about 30, right? Yeah. So you'd be 30 and you'd be taken back, say, to the same time as the president was assassinated, right? Yeah. So if that person turned up on film, right? Yeah. Whether he'd got a gun in his hand or been accused, and people were looking for a 30-year-old male, right? Yeah. I'd be one. So straight away you're looking for somebody, sort of like 29 years out of the sort of like frame, because you'd only just been born. So if they were looking for a 30-year-old, you know what I mean, then you come back in time, back to 1990, right? Yeah. Sort of like, this is what they can do.
They can do that, yes.
Yeah. This is exactly what they can do. You don't have to have a sniper on a roof, out of a window. These things are much cleverer than that. Much cleverer. They can. It's like what I've learned. So
they could take someone like you back to the Kennedy assassination. You would assassinate them and then put you back in your own time, and so no one could ever find whoever did it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. How could they find you? You weren't born. You're a year old. You'd be a year old.
That's the same thing in that film series about JFK 1961. The second shooter was introduced by a time traveler who recruited this guy who became the second shooter.
Right. Well, that's a very interesting concept that I've had. I have said no, but that's when they told me that it's always by my own consent. So I was being beamed up by my chest. They slowed it down, and as I was starting to raise up, my arms were kind of like flung back, and I started to black out. I said, "No, if you're going to take me, I want to be conscious. You're not going to black me out. I want to know everything from when my feet leave the ground to every step." And they said, "Oh, well, we've never taken you against your will," and they just gently sat me back down on the ground. And
the thing is,
yeah.
Which type took you? Because there's more, what you're going to find out now is there's more than one type.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that because I was outside of time, going to this other time and place where this abduction, quote unquote, was happening, and then I was returned back to my regular time, to my bed, and my husband, who was beside me, not this one, my previous husband, I didn't even notice I had been gone. They had blacked him out. So.
Yeah, that's what they do. But there's different, what you'll see now. Anyway, so the next thing, I remember the next thing, was that I'm on this, this was actually the time before that, actually. I'm laid down, sort of like, then there's something which is introduced into my throat, and I've got this, like I say, I've got this uniform on, I've got this thing introduced into my throat, and it's like a pipe that's gone down, and part of it is an helmet. So I've got this helmet on, and I'm not comfortable, I'm choking, but I think they spray me with something, and I'm okay. I stopped struggling. So, and I remember we given orders and what have you, but like I say, that was the first time, and it was like, you know, some kind of helmet with a tube into it, and that was the first time. Then we go out, a different kind. It's a uniform, but it's got dials on. It's a different type. It's got dials on. And we've got helmets on, but the helmets are changing over the years that have been taken. So then the next time we're in this big arena and we're training. We're all training there. We've all got the same uniforms on and what have you. There's an insignia. I know, to this day, I know my number, my actual number for my unit, right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so what we're doing is, in this big arena, we've got these weapons that have a dial, and the dial goes up, and this is one specific type of weapon, and it's a sound weapon, right? Yeah, and you've got to have helmets on when you're using these weapons, because the sound, what it does, it basically bursts your eardrums.
Ooh.
So you've always got to, and this is one of the reasons why I've got a bad ear. I've got a bad right ear because of an accident that happened. And you turn the dial up, and for whatever different creature, etc., the dial turns up, and it blasts things to pieces. It's unbelievable. You know, these weapons are absolutely unbelievable. You know, the devastation, what they do. But they do.
What were you shooting at? What were you aiming at?
Well, we've been in a unit, and we've been sent out to fight their enemies. So
what did the enemies look like?
Well, some of them quite similar to them, which are big dudes, you know, like monsters. There's also human-looking. Like people, there's people that are fighting, but the thing is, and this is the sneaky thing, because I swear this, right? Yeah, that there's something going on, and it's worldwide, and you're getting the uniform is very similar, and you can see almost the same people in different countries wearing sneaky beaky black gear, and they're just turning up, and they could be in somebody else's country, and there's nothing they can do about it. You know what I mean? There's nothing they can do about it. They can just turn up. They'll turn up. They've got the right vehicles. The uniforms are the same and everything. And for all intents and purposes, that somebody is wearing that country's maybe the same insignia and what have you, and it's nothing to do with them, but it's these guys that are behind it. You know. But when
did you shoot anybody?
Have I shot anybody? Well,
that's what I'm asking.
Well, yeah, we're in a unit, and that's what we unfortunately. I'm very reluctant. I don't want to shoot anybody, and especially if there's humans, especially because one thing that happened, and this very, very odd is this, and I was we're on a patrol, and I noticed something over in the corner, and a rifle comes up, and I could have shot this person, but I didn't. Right? Yeah, I didn't. I basically looked, and I told one of the other troops at the side of us, "There's somebody over there. He's one of us. He's one of us.
Oh.
He's a human." And we wasn't supposed to be. At this point, it wasn't supposed to be a human. It wasn't contact with humans, right? Yeah, this was supposed to be a non-human contact. And I'm saying it's a human, and I'm taking my helmet off, and the next thing I know, I got shot in the back.
Oh,
I could have shot the person, but I'm letting him off, so I got shot in the back. My gun then. I fall into the person behind, and his gun shoots me in the back, and my gun goes off, and I've got an helmet half on and half off, right? Yeah. So I'm deafened, right? Yeah, because we're using. Luckily, the suit stopped me from being disintegrated and obliterated, right? Yeah. So I end up on the floor, wrapped in pain, screaming, and sort of like a burst eardrum. I come around, and my unit's gone. They've got out of there. I've never seen them hightail it from anything ever. I mean, these aliens that taken us, they're nasty. You know what I mean? They don't stand any nonsense, but they got out of there, and I'm left. And when I got up, there's another unit of troops around. There's other soldiers around, and they're calling each other, you know, brother. And I said, it's a big family, is this? And basically, I'm being beaten, and I'm, you know, what's going on? So I'm a prisoner now, and I'm looking, and these guys are calling each other brother and what have you, and they said to us. And I said, you know, like, who are you? And he were like, very similar, like Templars, very, very odd. That, you know, sort of like, they were very courteous, but one of them, you know, sort of like, don't want me alive. It's, you know, really bizarre. So I said, look, what are you doing? And they said, you don't ask us questions. You're here, we're asking the questions. So that, what are you doing here? So basically, you know, we've been given there's an operation going on and what have you, but this is non-contact with humans. What are you doing here? So now there's something that's happened, which is I'm there, right, on this planet, in this time frame, right, yeah, I've been taken, and I'm there. How am I going to get back? My unit have hightailed out of there, and I'm left now.
Right.
So how am I going to get back to where I've been taken from?
Right.
Right, yeah.
So what happened?
Well, basically, they brought me back.
Oh, they brought you.
They brought me back, and there's one condition: never ever fight for these ever again. Right? Yeah, I can never ever fight.
Injuries? Where you were hurt? What happened to your body from this?
Yeah, you were shot. What happened?
Well, this is another injury. Like I was telling you, I've got problems with my kidneys now. Sort of like, and it's all the back area where I was shot.
Oh.
Sort of like things today, sort of like the ailments are coming back from things that have happened before. So sort of like all this is sort of like someone said, oh, it's because you've got a bad diet, Russ, you know what I mean? Sort of like it's kidney stones, it's this, that and the other, sort of like, but it's not only that, it's like in the back area, I have a lot of pain and what have you. So what happened then? Basically, I was brought back, and sort of like I was told, yeah, well, now the problem is they bring me back by their mode of transport, which is different to the ones that took me. Their mode of transport, similar, but there's a crossover. So I'm brought back, and there could be a little bit of variation in time when they brought me back, because they had no point from A to B. If you see what I mean. So
yeah,
this timeline, it could be slightly out. You see. So, and that's a big problem. So anyway,
did you notice differences in the timeline where you were taken from to this timeline?
I was brought back more or less to the correct timeline.
Okay. But it's slightly different.
Yeah.
And the one you were in with the uniform, that you got hurt in.
Yeah. So, but that's where I was from A to B, but I had to come back from B back to A. But the problem was, that I was coming back via a different transport. Although it be the same type, there's slight variations, because it's what it is basically. I'll be honest with you, right? Yeah, we've got more than one side here playing, right? Yeah, at the moment around the world, and it's not only around the world, it's throughout the universe, and it's been going on for so long, and it's people that have got to put it in a nutshell, it's people that have got old technology, right? Yeah, it's people that have got old technology, and it's people that have got new technology, and they're basically fighting for the one thing, and that is to dominate. That's what it's always about, domination. And what they're doing, believe me, I mean, we lived in underground bases, right? Yeah, and it's like we lived like billeted in a room, and that room, like air conditioned. You went in, there was no door as such. There was like a partition when you went through the doorway, right? Yeah, so you couldn't see out of the room because there's like a partition in front. You had to go around either side, to go out and what have you. So we all had each like a door. You'd call it maybe dormitories, yeah. So we'd all have his own dormitory, instead of being with like 15 of you, we'd have a single one. I think I remember at first that we was in a room all together, and then, so I must have been there for quite some time, right? Yeah, and then you allocated then a partner, which is very, very strict. We sort of like allocated a partner, a female partner, And she's also a protector as well.
Did you ever find one of your partners or one of your domicile barracks mates in the 3D reality?
Wow. Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've something happened and somebody saw me I was on TV and in a magazine. And remember, we change. People over the years, some of our friends, in the unit and our brothers die, and they have died. I mean, I was lucky that I didn't die that day. So and then you sort of like gone, sort of like there's a partner without, sort of like her partner, sort of like. But this is more than just a female partner. It's more than just sort of like, sex and that type of thing, because these women are they're our protectors. These women are protectors. They're also something very, very strange. I will try to explain it to somebody who thought it was hilarious, and I said that there's like a dance ritual. There's a ritual where they dance, and it's a little bit like the Middle East, that like belly dancing. Really bizarre. And it's a form of, how can I put it? It's something that happens, before you go. Usually, if for instance, there's a big battle coming up, it's something that happens where everybody's together, and these dancers. But not only do they dance, this it's like a ritual sort of thing. But the other thing is that they're like psychics. That the women are actually like psychics, because they can stop these things coming to get us. Other things coming to get us, which are not human, if you know what I mean.
Well, that makes total sense, because we know that our governments are looking for people that are very psychic like that. And so a lot of people who know how to utilize their chakras, perhaps, like the dancing, they go into the magic aspect of.
Yeah, it's like a trance. It's like it's quite amazing. It's very hard to explain to people. It's very hard to, and not only that.
It's very, very much like ultimately the British Isles were settled by Celtic, or by people that were Viking people that were fighting back against the encroaching Charlemagne's Christians and so forth. So that it's ancient Celtic Viking thing. It's called a shield mate. If you looked at the series The Vikings, you can see there's these magical women that stand back to back with their man, and it's way more than just sex and marriage. It's life or death.
Oh yeah, these are protectors. And the thing is, I've seen this happen myself, where they know, and the when you're asleep, they're awake, watching over you.
Wow.
They're watching over you. They're sort of like they don't go to sleep when you go to sleep. They watch over you. They make sure that these things don't come, even when you're in base. Because these things can come, and not many people know that. I try not to tell too many things, because people might not be comfortable. Like you were just saying, these women, right? Yeah, every bit as much as a warrior than the men.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And every bit. Sort of like
they know when the Stargate or the time portal is opening. They know when somebody or something is coming through, and they're able to alarm, ring the alarm and get people out of harm's way.
Oh yeah.
But you were injured, left behind.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I never went back, because when I was taken, when I was brought back into this time, that's when things stopped for me, because it was like, there's no going back out with these guys again. You know, sort of like you've been told now. You know, this is what it's about. They're not your kind. You know, these creatures are murderers. You know, and sort of like they won't take you again. You know, sort of like you know, you're just not fighting for these anymore.
So you got a discharge.
Oh yeah.
You knew. Yeah.
So, but they'll try.
That was the last. So you're
They'll
not taking
try.
any more from his military. Oh, that's great.
They'll come for me, but the thing is, you know, I just won't go.
You won't go.
Did you ever meet your shield mate?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Oh.
So what happened? You met here in 3D?
Yeah. I've spoken. Yeah. The thing is, what happens sometimes though, right? Yeah. And this is because sometimes, like I say, with fatalities, with people being injured and killed in battle, that sometimes you what happens is that you go from one base to another base, because there's more than one base on this planet, and there's more than, so if you basically go to another planet, or you're called to a different area, and then that there's more than one, because she wouldn't go. They usually stay in the base.
Oh, so you get a new woman when you go to the new base.
Yeah.
Cool.
It doesn't often happen. It's only because you may be called. What might have happened is that you might have gone up the ranks, you see, because there's the same kind of rank system in the military. So you, as you're basically going up, you know, sort of like, and then, but the other thing I noticed over the years, the helmets, we didn't use the helmets as much, and the weapons changed. And I was talking, you know, sort of like with this group of aliens, because that's all you can call them. I asked questions, and I was told never ask questions, right? Yeah, they'll talk, and they did talk and what have you, but they couldn't tell you what planet they came from. They would not make conversation about where they're from, and what have you. All we was there to do was to do a job, their bidding, and that's all.
But Russ, you must have been able to disassemble and assemble your weapon. What was it like? How did it work? What was the weapons that you had?
Basically, it was very, very light. It had a dial on it. It basically went into a unit which was charged up, and what happens is that when you go into this area where they're charged and what have you, right? Yeah, there's like an earplug type. When you go out, then there's a bigger and a helmet what you've got to use, because you cannot fire one of these things without assistance of hearing, because these things will just burst your eardrums. It's a sound weapon. It works on sound.
And it's directional. You aim it someplace, and it goes to where you're aiming it.
Yeah, it goes very, very well. And there's a dial, and there's the field where it can narrow down and what have you. And the other one goes for different types of what I would say different types of enemy. You know.
So you can pinpoint, or you can make it like shotgun and open it up wider. Is that what?
Oh yeah. You know, and but I've also, what happened, there was something very, very strange that happened, which is I came into contact with what I would call firearms of the day, which is, you know, today's weapons, which were not. So this ties up with them basically doing things and being part of something here on Earth, right? Yeah, and being able to get into areas and get their units into areas, and you would not know, you know what I mean, sort of like no matter what country there was in, they'd be wearing that country of origins uniforms. And
so,
you know, you wouldn't know any different.
So you've been in this secret military, and you've been taken and returned for many years ongoing now? And do you have like an idea of what's going on? So this is happening around the planet and all the places. So there's this ongoing war going on. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, it's been going on for 2,000 years, and before
thousands of years.
2,000 years. You know, and it's about things on this planet wasn't always like this, right? Yeah, and it's a case of there been wars and battles on this planet before, and there was how can I put it? Technology. There's ancient technology around, and certain people got their hands on it, and there's other technologies what they've been trying to get, and part of that is time travel.
So do you think our current governments and military, that's the surface 3D governments and military, you know, United States and Russia and China, do you think that our governments are aware of this secret battle? And if so, how do you know that?
Oh, hell yeah, they've got to know. They've got to know about it because they're part of it. The problem is that there's some parts of the government that know about it, and some parts that are, how can I put it, not working for that government. They might live there, they might have lived there, the families might have lived there for generations. Doesn't mean to say they've got the vested interest in that government's views. You know?
So they've been taking not just the experiencer contactees for like the breeding program, but they're taking a percentage of, we don't know what it is, X, for these military excursions. So you get drafted whether you like it or not, and that's your secret life you have simultaneously with your life, where you still have to get up and go to work in whatever job you're doing in your 3D life. It's like you get no rest.
No, and that's one of the big problems, because the thing is, it's bad enough being taken, but when it boils down to it, you're being taken and you're being put into a different time frame, right? Yeah, and the thing is, we're not meant to do that. That isn't, you know, humans are not meant to do this. And this is why there's a lot of people that I've met that are ill and have become ill over the years because they've been taken. And, you know, it's like, you know, sort of like, it's like travel sickness. It's like radiation sickness, except all into one, because we're not built to do this.
So you're expendable, in other words, you're expendable. They don't care ultimately what happens to you.
No, there's always somebody else. But like I say, I was taken out of that scenario. I was told, you don't come back and you don't do this again. You know.
So that's why they just keep continually to breed. That's why they don't. You know, they have like religions that say just keep breeding and don't use birth control and don't get abortions, because they always need fresh soldiers for the wars that are on the planet.
I mean, it's like I hear a lot of people say, oh, you know, sort of like there's hybrids. I've never seen any hybrids. You don't need hybrids. You don't need, humans are humans, and you always have children. There'll always be, the world will always be overpopulated. You know, I mean, some very, very strange things have been coming up, and And one of the things was when I was on BBC Radio talking about how many people go missing every year. And this was about 6 years ago, I think it was. And at that point, I think that it worked its way up to a startling number. I think it was 280,000 people go missing just in England alone each year.
Wow.
So where are all, and the presenter said, but you do realise, she says, that, they're all found the day after. And I said, well, no, actually, because you've got to be missing for 2 days before you even registered as missing. So you're not the next day. You've got to have access.
They can return you, so there's really no real extensive missing time here, but you could have been on your other life for weeks or months or years.
Oh yeah. This is it, and like I say, and who knows what they've been. I mean, I know what they've been doing because I can recollect it all, or most of everything. Sort of like that's happened to me. I can remember it, and some things I don't really wish to remember. It's not good. And what I'm trying to tell people is don't think this is good by any means. It's not, and this needs to stop. It needs to be stopped. But the problem is, I've got the funny feeling that our governments know about it.
Right. Go ahead, Sash.
I just wonder if if there's any wisdom that the Templars have either given you or to us about how to react to this situation.
Yeah, and that is love is everything. Love you, brother. Don't fight.
How does what behaviors lead to a cessation of fighting?
Say that again, sorry.
What behaviors that can we engage as human beings engage in that lead to a cessation of fighting and war and strife and division and enmity?
Well, usually, and unfortunately, peer pressure puts people forward into, it's like so-and-so down the street's gone to fight so-and-so for his country, and so-and-so's gone, and then you might get a neighbour and a pretty little girl or whatever. Oh, yeah, well, they've gone to do their duty and what have you. So peer pressure, then he thinks, oh, well, they're going to think I'm some kind of wuss if I don't go. So then that person goes. So it's like follow my leader. It's like sheep, when, and this is the problem. When somebody stands up and says, you can call me all the names under the sun, I don't want to go and kill because of this. Unfortunately, jobs, the army, they pay good money to go. You've got other jobs in the army. You could be doing all sorts of different jobs as well as a trooper, So it's a case of people have to join the armies, but what comes with the army is, of course, fighting for your country and what have you. So, and but everybody wants to feel safe in the country. So you're on a sticky wicket straight away because you've got to be safe in your country and what have you, and patriot and everything. But you're following if something does happen, and so you're just doing the same thing, which is fighting sometimes because a country's gone to war, just because you're patriotic and just because somebody down the road's gone and somebody up the road's gone to war and what have you. So it's just one of those situations. It's just one of those situations, unfortunately.
Well, we're running out of time, and we obviously are going to have you back. But let's try to wrap this up. Let's see, we probably have about 2 more minutes or 3.
Tell us something good. Tell us something hopeful.
Yeah. So we've got our work cut out, but what can we what can we do? Was there anything we can do? What's step one?
What can we do? What to stop this?
Yeah.
Yes.
If I knew, I would have stopped it before it started.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I wish I only. I mean, like now, it's one of these things where I don't meditate. I don't meditate anymore because, to me, that was maybe a problem that these things. I'm not sure. Like I say, we were talking about Vikings earlier on. I'm Viking through and through. Both families of Vikings.
Yeah.
Maybe it is my blood. Maybe it is my DNA. Maybe there's nothing I could have done. Perhaps, you know.
Yeah.
It's
the warrior.
And I have, what's really interesting is I'm a lifelong experiencer, and I have all these positive things. And if I say no, they don't do it. If I say yes, they do. And I ask all the questions I want. So I'm having some kind of different experience or interaction with different beings.
What type was the ones that took you? What did they look like? What type was them?
I have tall whites, I've mantis, grays, 3 or 4 different varieties of grays.
And military.
And the military, I was on a military base. Anunnaki, I asked them, are you Anunnaki? They said yes. I was at a council with 100,000 different beings, and it was like a place that was created just for the meeting, and then once you're gone, the building, the place is gone. It exists for that moment. So, but we're out of time. I will contact you by email to set up some other dates. This is absolutely fascinating, and we are so grateful that you. I know it must be late for you. You're in the UK. What's your website?
I'm always up. I can't sleep. My website's BritishUFOhunters.com. BritishUFOhunters.com.
Okay, and you got a book? Tell us about your books.
Did you write a book yet?
Well, somebody wrote it about the Berwyn Mountains. It was the Berwyn Mountains Revealed, I think. I spent 20 years researching the Berwyn Mountains incident.
What about your story? Have you written your book yet? I'd love to help you. Have you written your book yet? I'd love to help you. Get that out to the world. This is fascinating.
I'm terrible. I'm dyslexic.
Oh, okay. Well, we can work around that. I'll talk to you offline, but there's ways of doing that.
Well, thank you very much for your time. And I have to listen, and I'm going to have to come on this show. Yeah, but I'm going to have to listen to this show more, and sort of I'm going to keep it now. And I'm fascinated actually by the show.
Well, thank you. Yes, we're
archived.
We're archived on freedomslips.com, and I will get the link up and send you a copy. I have to wait 48 hours. I'll contact you to get you on more often, and we're going to have to kind of pick up where we left off and kind of do a brief, like a series. We'll be doing a series of shows.
But your drawings are wonderful. We could, any drawings you sent us, we'll post.
And with that, we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Russ.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. God bless. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Thomas.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us